All right. Hello. Good morning. I am here back on the Agape Enters podcast with Reverend Tiffany Brooks, who is discussing with us Post-Grad God's Way. I'm so excited to be joined by her this morning. She's a wonderful, wonderful woman of God who was patient with me. As you can see, I'm in a different location because I jumped to a room where we couldn't hear someone mowing the lawn outside, and she was just patient and wonderful. So I thank her. But we're going to dive right in. So please tell us about yourself.
Okay, so for the purposes of this particular episode, I am from Queens, New York, and how I got here is school. Well, to the DMV area because I don't know where we are. So I went for undergrad. I went to the University of Maryland, College Park, where I received a bachelor's degree in kinesiological sciences. And then I took like a 2-year gap to kind of figure out what it was that I really wanted to do because I didn't want to do medicine anymore. Did City Year, decided I loved education, had wonderful experiences in City Year. Well, my particular experiences were wonderful. I went to American University to receive my master's degree in education policy and leadership and also curriculum and instruction. It was by the grace of God that I was able to do all of that. And then I went to Wesley Theological Seminary to get my master's of divinity degree. And so, as you can see, I am a mixed bag of just stuff. But that's essentially a little bit about me. Hope
Thank
I
you so
answered
much.
everything.
Absolutely, absolutely sufficient. Thank you for sharing a bit of your story. I think even the terminology of post grad can mean a lot of different things, specifically to someone with multiple degrees. So we can start from the undergraduate lens or even high school if you'd like. But what was your post grad experience like, at least the first time where you feel like it was a substantial change in your life?
I would say after undergrad, to be honest, because I had wanted to be a doctor my entire life. I wanted to be a cardiovascular surgeon. I wanted to be a physical therapist. I wanted to be a PA. Like, even though I changed several times, I knew I wanted to be a doctor. So my life really did not change until I would say my senior year of college, maybe my junior year. I interned and I was just like, wow, I don't know if I like this. I don't know if I like this as much as I did. And the crazy part is, prior to that internship, I had done like medicine programs and, in high school and in middle school, guide to doctors programs and stuff like that. And I was fortunate to have parents that would be able to have me experience those things. So I was just like, no, I'm going to be a doctor. Then that all changed my senior year. A lot of things happened when I was an undergrad. My mom passed away. So it was just a lot of sorting and figuring out life. But one thing I knew was like, I don't want to do this, but I got to figure out what it is that I want to do. So at that time, the post-grad experience was I felt like a fish out of water almost, because I'm just like, okay, this is what you wanted to do your entire life. Now what? Like, how do you figure that out? And so that was a journey. And then I would say that was a journey. My first master's degree, I pretty much knew what I wanted to do. So it wasn't hard. So that was actually very smooth. And it was not until seminary when things kind of got a little ruffled again. Seminary is a very interesting place, I would say that. But it was a lot of course correcting and redefining. But God has been gracious to allow me to be able to utilize all of my skills in the space that I am currently in. Maybe not so much my undergraduate degree, but life after that. In this space, I have been able to do education and theology together. And so it all works out. But post-grad, undergrad, man.
I was just about to ask. So you raised so many important kind of points that I want to hit on. First, I know a lot of people who experience this like why am I in undergrad? I don't know. I'm not going to use my degree. I don't even know if I want to do this anymore. What would you say to them in like advising them to either kind of not throw away the entire experience? It's still something fulfilling and worthwhile that you should do, or do you come from the school of thought that it's not for everyone? How would you speak to that emotion?
I come from the school of thought that it is not for everyone. I think that people are oftentimes shuffled and forced into spaces by outside forces. And I say outside forces because it's a variety of things, right? But it's not for everyone. It really is not. And we have to stop trying to force people into our own ideals and boxes of what they should be doing and what they shouldn't be doing. Now, will I always be an advocate for education? Yes. Will I always be an advocate for knowledge acquiring? Yes. But what I have come to learn and know is that undergrad and college ain't for everybody, especially depending on what you're doing. Like, I know a lot of people who actually don't use their undergraduate degrees unless they're like, it depends on the profession. And even still, right, it's okay to do this 4 years of something and change your mind. It is okay to be when I started out in undergrad, even though I knew I wanted to be a doctor, my major was journalism. I even got into the school of journalism.
All over the place.
All over the place. Right. And then I was like, no, just go back to your original plan, girl. And look where that got me. But now I can later on in life, I can be like, you know what? It was really okay. During that time, it was like, ooh. And I wish that I had the mindset that I have today. Like, it's really okay to change your mind. But it's also understanding that that's a privilege too.
Absolutely.
It's a privilege to be able to change your mind. It's a privilege to be able to say, I don't want to do this anymore, so I'm going to go here. And so it's important to understand where you are and where you're at. But if you want to change your mind and you're not passionate about something, it's okay. Yeah. And don't waste your time doing something you're not passionate about, because more than likely what you're not passionate about is also not purposeful.
Okay. Beautiful transition. Beautiful transition. Snaps. Love that. Fantastic. No, so good. So good. I love that. It's completely okay to change your mind. And that, I think, tugging that we feel when we want to change our mind comes from a place outside of ourselves, which I think is a beautiful transition to our next question. So how did your faith inform your decision-making after graduation?
Ooh, I literally had no other options.
I was about to say, go for it. Unpack it for me.
It's part of knowing yourself, right? I know me, and I will try to use up every option and possibility that I can. You hear what I'm saying? Like, if that ain't work, I'm gonna try this. If that ain't, like, unfortunately, I've learned from it now as I've gotten older, but unfortunately, then it was like, nah, something has to work, or something got to work. It was not until I literally was fresh out of options for me, and my faith had to be activated because I didn't have nothing else. It was like, yo, what are you doing? You don't know. The only one that knows is God, right? And at this point, you have ran yourself ragged trying to figure it out. Just lean on God. But it's unfortunate that I got there towards the end versus me thinking, what would life would have been like during that time if I had immediately jumped to faith, right? And not to say that we don't get nervous or anxious, right? Because not being young and not knowing what's next in a society that continues to try to tell you what's next, and you're getting all these images in your mind. And, when I was an undergrad, that was from 2008 to 2012. Times look a lot different these days. Social media was not that popping then. But even still, there were still images coming, telling me what I had to do, what I needed to do. And a lot of me had adopted that. So it was not until the end where my faith became super crucial. Like my faith was almost conditional. Like I know this is going to work out because it has always worked out for me. I know it's going to da. But in essence, when I look back at it, there was a confidence that I had, but I did not really have the faith that we know about in biblically. I didn't really have that kind of faith, because if I had that kind of faith, I would have gone from this is going to work because I know it's going to work to this is going to work, but if it doesn't, it's still going to work. And you see that difference?
Yeah.
Like that's the difference. And so, like I said, I wish I had that mindset at the onset, because I feel like, and things work together. We praise God, but I feel like I would have handled things a lot differently. What's this now? Over 10 years ago, maybe 2008, 2012, whatever time frame. But it was not until the end of it all, till I ran out of options. And, if it was on the other end, that would have been a lot wiser.
Yeah, I completely get where you're coming from. And that's why I love like talking to friends and mentors that are a couple, years my senior, that would say, hey, like, don't run around in circles. Don't make the same mistakes I made. And obviously we still have to go through our lives and learn things sometimes for ourselves. But I think I love that distinction that you made, that faith that's conditional versus the faith that says, if I'm redirected, I know it's still working out for my good at the end of the day. So I absolutely love to hear that from not only you, but like young adults in general, because I think sometimes we paint it like I have to be like 65 plus to kind of have wisdom that.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that was very wise to hear from you. So thank you so much for sharing that. Yes. So my question, I feel like this is kind of a funny question now that you say it was kind of decided for you is what I'm hearing. But what did confirmation look like for you when discerning those next steps? How did you know? And I guess sometimes we don't know, but have you ever experienced what's described as confirmation? Like, okay, I feel like I'm on the right path. Let me keep pursuing this.
I have, and it was not until I really got serious about God. Confirmation for me came in a variety of ways. It came in people, experiences, it came in opportunities, but really boiled down to is being able to discern and hear the voice of God. Like there is this particular knowing that I cannot describe the feeling, but it's this knowing that, okay, I am on the right track. I am on the right path. I am going and headed in the right direction. And like I said, it's an indescribable feeling, to be quite honest with you. But confirmation for me came in a number of ways. But again, I will always go back to, like, I even remember prayers, and I still pray this, like, Lord, if this is you, show me in the way that I would best interpret that this is you. You know how I hear you. You know how I see you. You know how I will be able to identify that this is you. So I am trusting that if I am headed in the right direction, if I am going in the right way, that you would let me know in a way that would be just more like, it's just like, this got to be God. This is God. And so confirmation again looked like so many things for me, but it was really that like inherent knowing, like, okay, this got to be you, God, because there's no other way. And so that's what confirmation looked like for me. But I spent time journaling. I spent time with God, right? I spent time reading my word and being intentional about understanding the ways in which the Lord communicates with me, with Tiffany Bianca, in the way that the Lord knows that I would listen, I would know, and have that reassurance.
Yeah, I love that. I think journaling and documenting those experiences that you heard God loud and clear, not that he's going to speak the same way every time, but at least, okay, I knew this was God then, so perhaps he's going to show up that way now. I think definitely is valuable in informing our faith and how we move forward. So I guess on top of that, what other practices would you advise, young people who are having difficulty during this transition to adopt, to ease some of that uncertainty? And I guess what would your advice be, or your prayer for them be?
I would say, so my advice would be to learn to prioritize rest now and taking Sabbath. Learn
And
it and put it into practice, because that will be, I think we are in a culture that's so used to going, and we don't take breaks, and we don't take time to really get to know ourselves, and we don't spend time getting to know not just ourselves, but how God sees us and views us and wants us to operate and move. So prioritize rest. Do things that you enjoy, that brings you joy. Like, you got to put, one thing I always say to people too, which I remember a friend reminded me of this, one thing you always got to protect is your peace. And it's not just your peace, but it's being intentional about creating environments and spaces where the peace of God is always present, right? Regardless of what's happening. But do things you enjoy. No one is too young for therapy. Go to therapy. Talk to someone.
Please go.
Listen, talk to someone. Talk to a mentor. Go to therapy. See a professional, right? Seek professional help. But also, if you know someone that is similar to you or headed in the direction that you're trying to head into, or has been in the same space that you have been in, talk to them, right? Hang out with your friends, talk to your friend, trusted, be discerning, trusted friends. But those would be a few things that I would say. But that Sabbath and that rest thing, super important. Key to learn and to adopt, not to be in this cycle of overproduction. So I think the problem too is we get caught up in always having to produce. And sometimes God is just like, yeah, I just want you to sit still because I want to talk to you about the next steps. I want to talk to you about the next moves you need to make. I want to talk to you about where you're headed next, but you're always trying to overproduce, sometimes in spaces that you either don't belong in or have been in for too long. And that's sometimes how we get stuck too. And so we have to be intentional about time, especially when we're young, because let me tell you, the older you get, and I'm still young, just a different kind of young. I'm 30s young now, but I'm still young. But honestly, if I would have prioritized rest then, I would have known how to operate better in a lot of professional spaces, right? Like, no, I'm sorry, I can't do this. It's my rest day. If you want me to be able to be productive here, I need to take this Sabbath. And so my prayer would be that in the midst of all that is happening, that, and I say we because I include myself in that because it's something I'm constantly learning, is that we don't get distracted and that we remain focused, not on just the things that we have to do or are engaged in, but that we remain focused on God and what God wants us to do and where God is leading us, and that we are intentional about that focus and that we are discerning, because there are so many things that are at play that's trying to take us off of where we're supposed to be and doing and going and who we're supposed to be engaged with. But it's also that we embrace the fullness and the grace of God, that it's okay to, in this journey, make mistakes. We're human. It's okay to not know sometimes. And sometimes not knowing is the best, right? And that we would lean into not just faith, but that we would lean into walking with God in whatever way that looks like and being okay. But also, lastly, which is super important, that we don't get distracted by what other people are or are not doing. That we don't get caught up in comparison, that we don't get caught up, especially if it's someone who, like me, has many different paths and different pathway than what typically the norm is. not to get, especially if you know your path is like one of those like, whoo, it's different from what the norm looks like, to not get distracted and caught up in this person's doing this person's doing that. But also that we would get off of social media sometimes. Social media plays a lot into how we view ourselves and what we're doing and how we're doing it. And people forget that social media is literally people's highlight reels, and that oftentimes people got to take 4 and 5 and 10 and 15 of the same scene or scenario just to craft it for other people's consumption. And it's like, no, enjoy life, make mistakes. It's okay. You'll be fine. But to literally just have the grace of God to stay in our lanes and to be okay with whatever path and direction that God has taken us.
You are really speaking to my heart today, Reverend Tiffany. No, I'm feeling it. I'm feeling it today. I think we've definitely talked about it one-on-one before, the importance of rest. So I appreciate you bringing that into the conversation too, because wow, the need to always produce, the need to always be busy really is the plight of our generation, because it's like if everyone's posting their highlights that everybody's always working. But little do you know, maybe they're prioritizing rest and you should be too. So I definitely appreciate you bringing that into the discussion today. My next question would be, have you ever experienced anything along the lines of the post-bachelor's blues or post-grad depression? We know that it's very real. Moving from a space where you were constantly producing, constantly working towards something, and now you're no longer doing that at least for a season before you figure out what's next. So did you ever experience that? And if you did, how did you combat that?
I have experienced that before. I have, especially because for me, one of the things that I've always struggled with, even as a child, is anxiety. So typically for people like me, we overthink, but we always try to have the solution first to what we think is going to happen. And so coming from that space, it's this always wanting to know, always needing to know. And when you don't have that certainty and when you don't know, it causes a response and a reaction. And so I've had therapy. I'm still in therapy. I go to therapy. So from the professional therapy standpoint, I was given tools and resources to help me navigate what anxiety looks like in my world, and to help me I'm looking for the right word to help me navigate that space when I am having an anxiety attack, for example. And so therapy was my main go-to, to be quite honest with you, and it helped me a lot. But it was also having a good support system that I could talk to and lean on in those seasons, because I went to school 3 times. And so I say seasons because that post-grad feeling of anxiety and depression and stuff sometimes doesn't happen right after graduation. Sometimes it could come, let's say 6 months later. And for example, you don't have a job lined up yet, but all your classmates or friends do. It could come a year later if you are working a job and you just happen to feel inside your spirit that that's not the place that you belong to. So now you're like, man, I didn't spend all my time in undergrad doing all of this for this job. And then now it's like, so I think post-grad depression can show up in any space and time, but it's important to have the right and proper tools and support systems around to be able to navigate what that looks like. And that's what I had. You know, my support system was also my family. My support system was friends. My support system was my therapist. My support system was the tools and resources given to me to be able to navigate those waters, and to get to a space of okayness of not knowing everything and not needing to know everything. And, you know, it's it's also a process for people too. So it's, it's also a process of grieving for some people too, right? It's a lot of cycles. So what I would first say, get a therapist, go to therapy, get some clinical help if you need it. It's perfectly okay. It is necessary and needed, because it's in those moments where you outpour and share, and then you have that support to help you navigate what you shared and what you poured out, but also to pour back into you. So that's how I was able to overcome that. And that's just some helpful tools for people who find themselves in who may find themselves in that position as well, because not everyone has the post-grad blues. Not everyone has post-grad depression, So.
Thank you so much for that. That definitely is helpful. I know so many of my friends that are nervous about graduating because they don't have a job lined up, or they're nervous because they're worried they're going to sink into that lack of purpose, or the feelings of downs that come with having a lack of direction. So that definitely speaks to what a lot of people are experiencing right now. So I pray that they are loved on and ministered to what you've shared with us today. Another question that I have, and I know you mentioned it earlier when you talked a little bit about your story, but have you ever felt the call to relocate? And did you heed that voice? Was it that you were just, going where the program was that you were excited about, or just feel that pulling to relocate? And how did you navigate that season?
So yes, I've experienced that before. That is why I'm still in the DMV today. Because after I graduated, didn't know what I want to do. I actually moved back to New York. I was home for a little bit, like, what we doing? And again, that's a privilege to be able to go back home and to just not know what you're doing and have all your needs met, right? And I don't take that for granted. And I'm thankful to God that I have that. And I still do have it today. But I finally, after maybe like 5 months after graduation, got a job here in DC. I was like, all right, I'm gonna do this job for however long. I'm gonna do it for a year. And by that point, maybe I figured out what I wanted to do. And then that year went to 2 years. And then I was like, oh, I like it here. This is cool. And then that went to 3, and I went to 4 and 5 and so forth and so on. So I wouldn't say I officially lived here from 2008 to 2012 because I was in school. So that, that wasn't really me living here. I didn't move back here until maybe the fall of 2013. No, 2012. Sorry. Was it the fall of whatever year it was? I came back and did what I did. But to be quite honest, I have that bug now to relocate. And so I'm navigating. You can just come and visit me wherever I land.
I was like, not you leaving me.
Just come and visit, girl.
Okay. All right.
But I'm
somewhere warm, please.
somewhere warm and tropical, right?
Please.
But yeah, no, I actually have had this feeling for probably the last year and a half now. So we'll see what the next year or two is looking like. And if God says move, I move. Okay. God knows. Listen, God knows what I don't know. God knows what I don't know, and I can only trust that God knows what God knows, and I'm gonna go with it. God has never led me astray before, even though sometimes it felt like it. Ain't even gonna lie. But at the end of the day, it was all for a greater purpose that I could not have fathomed, and I am so thankful for today.
I applaud you for leading into this discomfort of that, because I know a lot of people, the whole idea of navigating your life by someone you cannot see is something a lot of people cannot fathom, get with, don't know how y'all do it. So I think it's really admirable that you're able to, lean into that. And my prayer for you is that, you continue to trust him. My next question would be, as a person with a range of different interests throughout your life, how did you navigate finding opportunities that fulfilled you? I know personally, I feel called in a lot of different areas sometimes. And, or I guess called is a word I'm trying to be better about. I feel like I like a lot of different things. I may not be called to all of those things. So how do you navigate finding opportunities that fulfill you when you enjoy so many different things?
I tell everybody do all the things. If you have the privilege and access, do all the things. If you like something, try it. And if you don't like it, it's okay. Move on. Do all the things. Who told us we could not do all the things? We only have one life.
Do all the things. We can do all the things.
All the things. You can literally, there's so much to do. You can literally do all the things. If you think you like crocheting, try crocheting. The only way you'll figure out what you don't like and what you're not passionate about is if you try it.
You're right. You're absolutely right.
Do all the things. How I found the opportunities to, like talking about in my professional career, one, having people that had my back. Okay. And that was putting me on, and vice versa. Like, yo, I saw this thing. I think you would be really good for it. And vice versa. Hey, yo, Tiff, I saw this thing. I think you would be very perfect for it. Or literally talking your you got to talk your friends up. You got to talk your circle up. Like, talk your friends up. Like, one of my best friends is a doctor, and I will promise you, I think she's certified in every field you can imagine. And she's always like, girl. And I'm like, look, I just be hyping you up. Hype up all my friends. One of my best friends is a bomb makeup artist. Hello, let me hype up your friends. And that's how I found a lot of opportunities. But it was also, once I leaned into what I knew I was passionate about and what I loved, every opportunity that I sought was in alignment with that passion, was in alignment with that love. So I know that I love working in education. So the opportunities that I'm going to look for are going to be around education. And as you continue to do those opportunities, you really begin to hone in on what it is that you love. So it was like, I taught in the classroom, which was great. I developed the curriculum and realized I love developing curriculums more. So how do I find opportunities where I can do that? And then it moved into like consulting work and all these other amazing things. And it still doesn't neglect purpose. And I'm passionate about it. And it's a million things to do. But it's because I literally, if I like something and want to do it, Tiff going to try it. And that's how she going to know if she really like it or if she really like it or not. And if I don't like it, then we're not going to go there no more.
I love that for Tiff. I love that for her. I love that we're talking about her in the third person. I think she's great.
Yes. Tiff is, Tiff is dope.
Tiff is green light. She said, okay, Lord, love that. Love that for all of us. We're all better for it. So great. So that concludes our questions that I had prepared, but I did want to ask if you are willing to share a prayer for our listeners today as they grapple with all the different things we discussed today, from, post-grad blues to uncertainty, whether they're going into their senior year, whether they're going into college. I just would love to extend that floor to you now, if you're comfortable.
Dang, people always got to pray just because I'm a Rev. No, I'm kidding. I'll pray. Like, dang, why do you always got to pray for her?
No, way before I was a Rev, my family said, "Oh, you blessing the table? Oh, you're doing that.
You blessing." Yeah, everybody, and I'm always like, everybody can pray, guys. The Lord listens to everyone. But I'm completely joking. For all of y'all listen, I'm completely joking. I do not mind praying for folks. Prayer is the key, okay? But yes, let us bow our heads and close our eyes. And if you are driving, listening to this,
do so.
Listen.
That. If not, exercise discernment, please.
Right, like if you can drive with your eyes closed, that's a different kind of faith. I would like to have it. Thanks. Okay.
I'm good without it. I think I'm good without it.
I don't want that kind. But yeah, let's go into prayer. Lord, you have been so gracious and kind, and we are just grateful for it. We are thankful for how you continue to bless us and keep us and watch over us. We are thankful for you just being you and always being you, unwavering, unchanging, but always just being present in the midst of all that is happening in our own lives. I want to pray for those who are discerning where you would have them to go post graduation, that you would make it clear the direction that you have for them. But that even if they feel like they are in a season of silence, that they are reminded, what I have been taught from Dr. Asa Lee, is that always follow the last thing that God has told you. So I pray that they lean into what it is that you have spoken to them, whether it be through you directly, whether it be through people or opportunities or whatever variety of ways, that they continue to lean and trust in you in this time. I pray for those who are seeking direction and clarity, who are going into the next steps in life, whether it be entering college or determining whether or not they want to go to college. Give them discernment and wisdom as well for how they should navigate that space, but give them supports needed and necessary around them to be able to do that journey with joy, and that they feel supported and that they feel uplifted. I pray for those who are dealing with anxiety and depression, that you guide them to the resources that they need and the tools that they need to navigate that space in life, but that it's not debilitating, but that it is strengthening and helping them to walk more faithfully in you. If there's any prayer point that I missed, Lord, you know the needs of your listeners and your hearers, so I pray that they be met. But overall, I pray for increased discernment and wisdom in every season of their lives. It is in your name, Jesus. It is your son name, Jesus, we pray. Amen.
Amen. Amen. Thank you so much, Reverend Tiffany. Reverend Tiffany Brooks, everyone, a wonderful person, a wonderful minister of the gospel, woman of God, just jack of all trades, wonderful person. I hope we can get together soon. And I hope you all enjoyed her just as much as I enjoy her friendship and mentorship in every way and season. She always shows up for me. So love you very much. And
love you
so much. We'll talk soon. Thank you all so much for listening.
Bye, everyone.